get bassy, or bassy, working on some delicious smallmouth with a spin cast rig. Have a little shore lunch. Sorry, wrong video. I'm trying to instigate a reboot of Scuttlebutt Lodge with Red Fisher, but he hasn't been responding. But the patient today needs some dentistry. Is it safe? Of course. Still, we'll have to have them all pulled out, because we're going fretless. Now this is a Yamaha BB435, a 5-string as you can see. The BB stands for broad bass. The 400 series is an affordable collection of basses which have been around since the mid-80s. Sort of a Yamaha take on a P bass, long scale, big neck, pretty standard in most respects, nothing too crazy. Well, almost. They did design a special 6-bolt neck attachment with what they call miter bolting. The 2 end screws go in at an angle, like pocket holes, maximizing the efficient string vibration transfer for outstanding sustain and resonance that brings every note to life. They also made the string through holes for the bridge at an angle too. I think someone discovered the rotatable drill head on the new CNC. So let's take some measurements and get yanking. Action at the 12th fret is a pretty sensible 4.5 64ths. Should be like 1.7, 1.8 millimeters, somewhere in there. Around 70 thousandths. Neck relief. Not that it really matters because we're taking the frets out and we'll be resurfacing the board. It's nice to know though, is about 8 thousandths, which is not outrageous. The player did some cosmetic modifications by removing the pickguard but leaving the screws, which is kind of fun. I like that this bridge includes a bump back for the 5th string in the event that you wanted to top load it, because it gives you that option. You can intonate it properly without having the windings at the end of the string go over top of the saddle, which is pretty cool. Fret removal begins by heating them up. This is an Indian rosewood fretboard. It's maybe less chippy than your typical ebony board, but still care must be taken. That was an ill-considered angle for that shot. I'm sorry. I'm very happy with the way these came out. It's very clean on the surface. The ends of the slots, however, are still full. They've been filled, and I need to cut through those as well because the player would like some visible lines under the note positions on the side of the neck to act as a visual guide. So basically the filler material I use is going to be exposed on the side. And I have to be careful, you know. The cuts have to be pushed inwards in the direction of the slot. If I pull back, chances are high that the finish and possibly the wood underneath it could fracture off the surface in big chunks. Rather than a contrasting filler, the customer wants to keep it low-key and go with black stripes rather than maple or holly or other things I've used. So I'm cutting strips of black veneer. This is about 21 thousandths of an inch thick, which should slide in very nicely. To glue these in, I'm using Titebond. I'll augment that later on with some cyanoacrylate glue as well, but this will get them down in the slots and keep them in place. The CA glue saturates the veneer and makes it less likely to splinter when I come back to pare it down even with the board surface. It also wicks into any little crevices left by the fret tang barbs along the sides of the frets. And there is a lot of paring to do. Care is required to keep from jamming the corner of the chisel into the board. Besides the black lines, the customer also wants to know if I can get rid of the fretboard dots. He wants a clean look, and also the ability to confuse guitarists who might want to count fret position during performance. That'll fix him for all those humiliating bassist jokes. As luck would have it, the dots were 5 millimeters, which is slightly less than my 1/4-inch plug cutter. Very fortuitous. So I marked and drilled them with a brad point bit, being careful. Then I looked through my rosewood offcuts to find something that was similar. I drilled some plugs and glued them in. Using a small flush cutting saw, I sawed them flush. Yamaha's usually pretty good about not using too much glue to hold the nut in place, so that came out cleanly. I'll tell you, the person who actually comes up with a peel and stick sandpaper that actually peels off cleanly will win all the monies. I've tried heat and all kinds of solvents, but every time it's an ordeal. This is a purple I don't think you'll find in nature. That's satisfying. The radius on this base is pretty flat. It's around 20 inches. I'll take off any mess from the glue and then make sure it's good and straight. Then I work my way up through the grits into the micro mesh. I want a nice smooth surface. I'm not sure how long it will stay shiny, as the player is using round wound strings, and those can be abrasive, but hope springs eternal. I'll seal the ends with some CA glue. When that's cured, I'll trim it back with a razor blade. I'll sand the edges of the board and break the corner. And then apply a rich, buttery coat of Danish oil. The action is now way too high because we've removed the frets. We're looking at 7/64, thereabouts, 8/64, and the relationship between the strings and the pickups has changed as well. We've got to lower those. I'm going to bring these down to 5/64 to start off with, realizing that there's also some material to come off the nut as well, which will lower things again. It's a bit of a back and forth operation. So we're now way too tall above the area where the first fret was, having removed it. So we've got to reduce the height at the fret slots. And I want there to be a gap here of approximately 22 thousandths of an inch at the first fret position. Exactly what it would be for, a standard fretted instrument. Be much easier to play in the lower positions. Right now it's about 60 thousandths. Quite a lot of material to take off. It also leaves a lot of extra height, which I need to dress down. On a bass especially, it's good to have about half the string diameter exposed on the lower strings. If there's too much material, it's not uncommon to break off the outside edges of the nut. That looks a lot better. Looks good. We have an action of about 4.5/64, which was what it was before. Sometimes it's necessary to raise the action slightly on a fretless, depending on your playing technique. But this plays nice and clean. To set the pickup height, I'm going to go with standard Fender specs, which is about 1/8 of an inch, 3.2 millimeters on the bass side, graduating up to about 6/64 or 2.4 millimeters on the treble. That should be a good ballpark figure. The player might want to move those around when he's testing with his own rig, but most people are pretty happy with factory spec. There we go, no frets, no dots. It's a handsome bass.